Are we ready, Mr. Tejas? I'd like to call this August 12th meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board to order at 9:02 a.m. Mr. Tejas, do we have any public comment this morning?
No, sir.
Okay, first item on the agenda, members of the board, is adoption of the minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of July 20th, 2015.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. Next item, presentation, discussion, and action on a board resolution selecting a firm to provide professional auditing services pursuant to the CRRMA's request for qualifications issued on June 24th, 2015, and authorizing the executive director to negotiate and execute an agreement with such firm. Mr. Tejas.
Good morning. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So today we've got a couple of procurement items that we're going to go through. This first one, as mentioned by the board chair, is related to the annual audits that are required of the Regional Mobility Authority. So let's get into it. I've got a PowerPoint here that will outline a few things for you. We'll talk about the process and timeline used for this procurement, the submittals received, the scoring criteria that was approved by the board, the evaluation committee that was used, and the final scores that they developed, and of course a request for board action. So back on June 24th, the request for qualifications for this one was issued, and I should note, because of the nature of services required, they are considered professional services and therefore go under a request for qualifications process, which in essence means we have to select the highest qualified firm, and then we negotiate with that highest qualified firm. If we can't negotiate a fair and reasonable price, then we would be authorized to go to the second highest rated firm. So that's the process we're utilizing here. Back on July 15th, the Q&A process, we actually built in a questions and answer process into this procurement as well. So the submitter, the firms that were interested actually submit questions to us, and we provide answers to help them in their responses. That was completed by July 15th. On July 29th, 3 submittals were received, and we'll talk about those. By August 11th, the evaluation committee had met and provided their final scores to me. And today, I'm asking for the board to select an audit firm with the idea that the agreement would actually be executed by August 26th. The idea here ultimately is to have a new audit firm on board before the end of the fiscal year, so that once the fiscal year closes, we can begin our audit of the last fiscal year 15. As a note here, a notice went to the El Paso chapters of the Texas Society of Certified Professional Accountants, the Institute of Internal Auditors, the Association of Government Accountants, and the Association of Fraud Examiners. The idea was we wanted everybody in the region to know that we had this procurement out and hopefully increase competition. So we received 3 submittals, and these are in alphabetical order. Accounting and Consulting Group submitted. That's actually an Albuquerque firm that is made up of various offices, and the El Paso office was the group that would be in charge of this audit. And that El Paso office is known here locally as White, Samaniego, and Campbell. Roxy Samaniego would be the principal for that group. Gibson Ruddock Patterson LLC also provided a submittal, and they're an El Paso firm with Craig Gibson serving as the point of contact, and Lauterbach Borschow and Company, also an El Paso firm with Greg Hartley serving as its point of contact for us. They all 3 firms submitted, all good submittals as well. The scoring criteria that was established by the RMA board, which was done by a board resolution on June 10th, established the following selection criteria and scoring. We had general overview of the firm, which could amount to up to 25% of the score. The audit experience of the firm was 50%, and the approach, capacity, and capability was another 25%. This is the evaluation committee that was used. Patricia Degman, who is the new comptroller for the city of El Paso, served on this committee, and that's really helpful because as a new comptroller, she needs to know who we are, right? Because the city of El Paso serves as our fiscal agent, so this was a nice way for her to learn about us. And I spent some time with her before the evaluation committee meeting, explaining who we are, how we operate, how the city serves as a fiscal agent, and all those sorts of things. So it was a good introduction for her, I think, and she served quite well. Melissa Guevara, you'll remember her name. She's with the Peña Briones McDaniel and Company, a local CPA firm who serves as our outside CPA firm. They really serve as a liaison between the RMA and the city of El Paso as fiscal agent. So obviously she's very heavily involved in the day-to-day financial transactions of the RMA, but also very heavily involved in any audit. So it was important to have her involved. And lastly, Fran O'Connor, who is part of our general engineering consultant team. Fran has a varied experience, heavily involved in transportation projects, but also what was really helpful to us here is that he, among other roles, was the auditor for the New Jersey Turnpike and served in various capacities with the New Jersey Turnpike. So has an extensive financial background, especially in transportation and toll-related activities, but also the general transportation experience that is helpful for understanding who we are and what we're up to. So I think a very good committee was used on this particular procurement. And here are the scores. Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson received a 95. Lauterbach, Borschow and Company received 78, and White and Samaniego and Campbell received 86. So this is the recommendation then, is that the scoring results in Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson, LLC is the highest ranked proposer. So I'll be asking of the board two board actions. A motion to adopt the ranking of firms enumerated here, and the reason for that is if for some reason we're not able to negotiate a fair and reasonable price with Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson, then I would come back to you and ask for the ability to go down to the next highest selected or highest ranked firm. The second action then is to authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute an agreement with Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson as the highest ranked firm to commence the RMA's fiscal year 2015 annual audit. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval.
Mr. Tejas, what's going to be the factor on, what's your basis to negotiate contract with them? Is it what we were charged by our previous auditors? Is that the starting point, or
that is?
I mean, is it? I'm wanting to get a handle on how we come to a number.
Certainly. So what we do is we look at the prior year's expense, and then I also work with Melissa Melissa Guevara from the Peña Briones CPA firm, and ask what the range is here locally, and make sure that whatever is submitted matches the services that they'll be providing to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions of the board? Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is update, discussion, and action on the following board resolutions as they relate to the El Paso Bike Share Program. A is the resolution selecting a bidder to provide operation services pursuant to the CRRMA's request for proposals issued on July 6, 2015, and authorizing the executive director to negotiate and execute an agreement with such selected bidder. Item B is resolution authorizing executive director to execute a license with the city of El Paso establishing the process to authorize the placement of bike share stations on city-owned property and rights-of-way. And item C, resolution establishing the rate schedule for the El Paso Bike Share Program. Mr. Tejas.
Okay, so as you can tell, we're doing several things with the bike share program today, and as you may have noticed, there was an article in Monday's El Paso Times, which I thought was a good write-up and description of where we're heading with this program. What I thought I'd do is actually provide two PowerPoints, not because I like to do them, but I think it's actually going to be very helpful for you. So this first one really is more of a general description of the program, how it works, and more importantly, the actual 8 locations that will serve as the initial phase for this program. Then the second PowerPoint will then go into the request for proposals that was utilized and a recommendation for a selection of a third-party operator for us. So let's do this first one and talk about the program in general. So we'll talk about how it works, where you can get a bike, and that includes, of course, the station locations. And then we'll get into the procurement. So how it works. So we're talking, this program is an initial phase. It was funded at $720,000, which includes multiple funding sources, including $276,000 from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, $100,000 from the City of El Paso, $24,000 from the University of Texas at El Paso through their Green Fund, which is managed by their student government, and the remaining $320,000 actually comes from the federal government through the MPO. So we have various stakeholders just from the funding side alone. Outside of that, we've also been dealing with other stakeholders such as the Downtown Management District, the El Paso Community College, Velo Paso, and other bike advocacy groups. So we've been out there working with the folks that are most likely to use and appreciate this program. But again, what we're talking about with the $720,000 program as a phase one is the purchase of 80 bikes and the location of 8 stations in downtown at the El Paso Community College Rio Grande campus and the UTEP locations. We'll get into the locations here in a moment. But I did want to talk about how it actually works. So there are a couple of ways to do it, and really ultimately what it really boils down to is that it's a bike share program as opposed to a bike rental program. And there's a big difference there. And the idea is the intention here is to have people turn over the bikes frequently, very, very much like a parking meter scenario, right? The idea is you're not supposed to feed the meter, you're supposed to feed the meter for 30 minutes, an hour, something like that. You do your business and you move on so that somebody else can use that spot. Same concept with bike share as opposed to a bike rental where you could rent a bike for a weekend or a week or something like that. So that's the concept behind bike share. The way that it's achieved then is through the use of set periods. For example, in our case, I'm proposing that we use 30-minute periods. So what that really amounts to is if a user comes to a bike kiosk, one of the stations, and you can swipe your credit card, and you would have a 24-day pass by way of example. So within a 24-hour period, you can check out a bike for 30-minute increments. So that means you could check it out, ride it from here over to a restaurant in downtown, you check it in, and as long as you made it within 30 minutes to your location, then you can check it out again once you've completed your lunch. So that's the idea. If you keep it longer than 30 minutes, then there is a fee that's assessed, and we'll talk about those fees under item 5C. So that in concept is how it works. Now, of course, there are different ways to access it. You have day passes, you have monthly passes, semester passes, and of course you have the annual membership as well. So we'll talk about those as well. So that in very general broad terms is how this thing will work. Now the stations themselves are solar powered and they would have battery backups in the event that we have bad weather for an extended period of time. But the stations will accept Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. So this is the breakout of who's doing what for the program. So B-Cycle LLC is the vendor of the bicycles and the stations themselves. So the kiosks come from them. The back-end software is developed by B-Cycle and maintained by them. And the bikes themselves, all of the proprietary items related to the bike come from B-Cycle. As you know, under 5A, item 5A, we have a procurement out for an operator. And that operator will literally operate the system. We're talking about the bike repairs, whether it's flat tires, whether there's chain replacements, the placement of advertising on the bicycles, all of that operational activity, including one item which I think is going to be very important in time, which is rebalancing the system. And really what that means is if there's an event at the ballpark, by way of example, then you'll have bikes coming into the ballpark, but at some point you're going to have all of your docks filled. So there will have to be somebody to come and rebalance the system, pick up those bikes and distribute them back to the other stations. So activities like that is included in the third-party operator. And then lastly, the RMA, and we will, of course, oversee and manage the program through the use of the GEC and other consultants on an as-needed basis. So those are the entities that will be involved in the operation of the system. This is what the stations will actually look like. These are B-Cycle stations, and you'll see the photo in the center is a single-sided station. We have several of those proposed in our initial phase one. And the photo on the right is a double station, and we have a couple of those as well. So you'll see both types of stations. So let's talk about the stations themselves. So we have 5 downtown locations, and we'll go through those in detail, 1 at Community College and 2 at UTEP. This is an aerial showing City Hall where we are now. If you notice the green shaded area, that's where the station will go. It's actually right out here. It's on Mills, close to Campbell. That'll be one of the first stations installed. Another location is down at the Downtown Transfer Center on Santa Fe. And you'll notice the green shaded area there is actually a really heavily populated area, and there's a ton of bike racks at the Downtown Transfer Center. So we anticipate this to be a heavily used location. I would mention here, actually, before I move on the Downtown Transfer Center, there is discussion with Sun Metro. And so obviously we need approval from Sun Metro to place on here. And I think they're very excited about the program. They think they like its connection to mass transit. They even passed this item up to the Federal Transit Administration, and they came back and fully supportive of it because it supplements and helps with transit. However, one of the things that we're talking to Sun Metro about is whether or not this is going to be a permanent location. We've talked with them in the past about potentially moving it next door here to the southern area where the parking lot is. That will be the maintenance and storage facility for the streetcar once it begins operations in a couple of years. So we've talked about potentially relocating it there. And there's a parking lot across Santa Fe that Sun Metro will be acquiring before too long that they've talked about as well. So this may be a temporary location, but for implementation and launch here in the coming month, this will be the first location for us in this area. This third location then is on El Paso Street, and it's right there in front of the parking lot for the El Paso Community College. Community College is very interested in this one as well, so we're anxious to place this down here. This one will link the community college, its students and its professors with downtown. There's been a lot of, when we first started talking about the program, we spoke with the community college. They sent out a survey to their students and faculty, and there was interest expressed from them trying to get into downtown for lunch and back. So I think this is going to be a nice, heavily used location as well. This location is at Cleveland Square. In fact, it's right at Franklin and Santa Fe across from the ballpark. So this one is going to be, I think, heavily used by folks trying to get in and out of the ballpark. So we're excited about this one. Not to mention the fact that it's on Museum Row. So you've got the History Museum, you've got the library, the Art Museum, Civic Center, and other locations that will feed into this location. So this is a good one. This one is near the university. So this one is actually on Oregon and universities. You know, UTEP has closed their facility to vehicles, so I'm anxious to see how this one works, right? Because all of the students that are coming in now on transit will be able to hop directly onto the bikes that are at this station. There are several, including Bus Rapid Transit, there are several bus stops in the area. So this one I'm anxious to see how it works. I'd mention too, I think that's a good jumping off point, that these stations are easily moved. They're easily expanded, easily reduced. So if as we watch this program over time, if we realize a station needs more bikes, we can add segments to it to add additional docks. The same goes if a station is simply not being used, we can pick that station up and move it. Because they're solar, they're not linked to any electrical, so they're very easy to move. So if we have to, we can move them as well. Same goes for if there's construction in the area, we can pick them up and move them temporarily as well. This station is actually going to be a temporary station. So this is in Pioneer Plaza, right across from the Plaza Theater. This one was originally planned for San Jacinto Plaza. As you know, that is not quite ready. So we're gonna place it here in Pioneer Plaza until the San Jacinto Plaza is ready. San Jacinto is actually unique in that once that's ready for us to place, it will actually have electricity. That will be a permanent station. So we'll simply remove the solar cap off the top of this kiosk and move it over to San Jacinto once it's ready. However, I think this is actually going to be a very nice location as well, with people coming in and out of the plaza, and you've got the Starbucks and the Civic Center, Convention Center right across Santa Fe. So this actually could be a very nice location as well. But it is scheduled to be temporary. This is another good one too. As you can tell, I'm excited by most of the locations. I think we've really found some good ones. We've worked heavily with the City of El Paso, with various departments within the city, the planning group, the legal group, Sun Metro, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, with all the folks that need to be involved. This one I like because it's actually right on Anthony Street in front of the garden. The reason I like it is that Anthony Street, as you know, is closed almost every weekend for a farmer's market, and this location will be right in the farmer's market. So you'll have the ability for folks to park at City Hall for free and ride a bike down to the farmer's market. And of course, these bikes will have baskets on them, so you can take all the stuff you buy back to your car. So I think this is going to be a good one as well. Not to mention, obviously, the nightlife and the parking issues that Union Plaza Entertainment District already has. This is another way to get in and out very easily. So I think that's going to be a good one as well. Then the final one, I think this is the 8th one, is at the UTEP library. So to orient you, the library is just south of the green shaded area. So we're on Wiggins Road, just off of the parking lot there. So the idea with this one is that UTEP students can ride transit over to the Oregon and University station, and then they'll be able to ride directly into campus and park right at the library. This one was obviously heavily coordinated with UTEP, and this is that connection is what UTEP officials felt would be the strongest and most heavily used, because most students are coming either to the library or to a facility near the library. So I think this is going to work out well as well. So that's it. Do you have any questions about how it works or the stations themselves? So if not, then let's...
Go ahead, Mr. Tiss.
Great. So we'll jump into the procurement then. So as I mentioned, this is under 5A. We issued a request for proposals for interested entities that would be interested in operating the system for us. As I mentioned, we're talking about bike repair, bike rebalancing, and customer service and the like. So we're going to talk about the process and timeline, the submittals received, the scoring criteria that was approved by the board, the evaluation committee final scores, and requested board action. So on July 6th, we issued a request for proposals. July 24th, this process included a question and answer process as well. So we completed that by July 24th. On August 3rd, we received 2 submittals. On August 10th, the evaluation committee met this past Monday. We'll talk about that group. And today, I'm hoping for direction from the board in selecting an operator. And hopefully, we'd like to have an agreement in place with the operator by August 18th. I mentioned here also that phone calls were made to the various bike shops in El Paso to alert them of the issuance of this procurement. Again, we wanted a lot of competition on this one. So submittals received, one by Crazy Cat Cyclery, an El Paso company owned by Roberto Barrio, and Mesilla Pedicab Company also submitted, also an El Paso company owned by Cesar Martinez. The scoring criteria was established by a board resolution of June 10th, and it included proposed approach for 30%, experience, capability, and capacity for 30%, and cost proposal for 40%. So the evaluation committee for this one included Lauren Baldwin, who's in the City of El Paso's Office of Resilience and Sustainability. Of note here is that Lauren has been involved in this program when the City of El Paso alone was looking at a bike share program. So the city had been looking at bike share for several years. They were trying to develop their own program and push it out before the RMA even got involved. So it was really helpful to have her involved because she had a great deal of experience, and of course she's a main contact for the RMA in terms of bike programs. They have a bike share program within the City of El Paso employees as well, so she's familiar with how it operates. So she's been very helpful. Claire Hurley is actually the field operations manager for B-Cycle, the vendor that actually provides the bikes and the stations as we discussed. More importantly, Claire actually operates 2 bike share programs in the country, one in Madison and the other in, I forget which city in Florida. So she has that operational experience. She knows what she's looking for. And when we were in the evaluation committee, it was really helpful to hear from her the strengths and weaknesses of each of the proposals. And lastly, Randy Oldham, who's part of our general engineering consultant team, was very helpful because she's been involved in almost all of our procurements to date, so she's familiar with that process as well. So again, a very strong evaluation committee for this program as well. Here are the scores. As I mentioned, the criteria included 30% for experience, capability, capacity, 30% for approach, and 40% for price proposal. So the scores here show Mesilla Pedicab Company coming in at 80.3, with Crazy Cat Cyclery coming in at 50.7. And ultimately, this one was decided by the price proposal. So the evaluation committee results. The scoring resulted in Mesilla Pedicab Company as the highest ranked proposer, and the requested board action, again, 2 steps. I'm asking for the selection of the Mesilla Pedicab Company as a provider of El Paso Bike Share Program Operations Services to the RMA, and also asking for a motion to authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute an operations agreement with the Mesilla Pedicab Company. So subject to your questions, that's what I have for you on this item, 5A.
I think the process was done very well. However, I have a question because I've not ever seen in this type of evaluation committee somebody score 2.5. So, I mean, basically, was their price just out of the universe, not competitive?
In essence, yes, sir. It was in excess of, I believe, 10 times the Mesilla Pedicab Company. So it was significantly higher.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, but yet their experience was way above the other bidder, which kind of gives me a little concern. Are we missing something? Is somebody missing something here? I mean, you have them pretty highly scored, but yet their price is...
Well, so the scoring for the experience, capability, capacity, and proposed approach, I believe, was only about 8 points off. So it wasn't significant. There was a clear distinction, and the reason for that is pretty clear as well. Crazy Cat Cyclery has 3 locations. They've been doing retail operations since, I believe, 95. They have built-in staff. They've been doing this for many, many years. The Mesilla Pedicab Company has been doing it since 2012. So right off the bat, you're going to lose points for experience, for capability, for capacity, because they simply don't have the retail locations, they don't have the square footage, they don't have the staff members. So you're going to see that. And in fact, this was discussed at length with the evaluation committee. And Claire Hurley, as I mentioned, who operates these facilities, felt that the staffing proposal from Mesilla Pedicab was actually more in line with what she's used to seeing and what's actually required to operate a system like this. So the evaluation committee came away from their discussion comfortable with the recommendations and the scoring as provided.
Is Mesilla proposing to staff up if they get this award or get new locations, or are they just going to kind of make do with what they have? What was their response to that?
So 2 things. We've not discussed with Mesilla Pedicab because no one's been awarded, but the staffing proposal included in their RFP, as reviewed by Claire and the other evaluation committee members, the committee members felt it was sufficient for our program. It's only 80 bikes and 8 stations, so they felt the staffing proposed, meaning what they actually have on the ground today, was sufficient. But we included in the RFP the requirement or the notice that we're looking to expand the program. And a consistent theme in this is that this is phase 1. Phase 2 will likely come in mid next year. So the proposals were familiar with, were alerted to the fact that there will be expansions in the future. So I believe, and my understanding is that the evaluation committee felt either of these firms, either of these companies could provide the services required.
So the way the bid is set out, if at the time we're ready to expand, would the contract allow for us to just amend with them and expand, or would we have to go for another bid?
No, we would amend and expand with the existing company.
But we would have the election not to do that.
Certainly, and this is, as with all of our agreements, we have the ability to terminate, we have the ability to put it out for bid again as well.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question a little bit more about the program, if you don't
No,
mind.
go ahead.
You know, I understand the funding is there, and I'm excited about the project. I think it's great to get started and initially get going, but do we anticipate this is going to become self-sustaining for maintenance and operation in the future? And if not, what do we have in place, or what are we looking at to get some funding for that?
Right, so bike share, it turns out, is very similar to transit. There are very few, in fact, I'm only aware of 1 bike share program in the country, or well, I'll leave it to the country. I'm only aware of 1 in the country that's self-sustaining. That's it. So these all require some sort of support. So what normally what bike share programs will do is develop sponsorships. So that's anything from, you can sponsor a station, you can put your advertising on the bikes themselves, you can have a global sponsor. There are some programs like City Bike in New York. They sponsored the entire program and they put their advertising, and it's known as a City Bike, that sort of thing. So you have different ways of doing that. So ultimately, to answer your question, This will not be self-sustaining, so the sponsorship program is important and is a necessary part of this program, and we recognize that. So first thing is we'll launch, and then step two, really at that point, is to begin looking for sponsors. Now, I'd mentioned too, of the $720,000, $320 of that we've retained for operational expenses. So we have that fund to hold us while we develop that sponsorship program. I'd mentioned too, one of the points that I think really helps us with Mesilla Pedicab is that they do advertising already. They've got contracts with Verizon and other folks to place marketing on their pedicab bikes already. So they're familiar with the concept, and we could certainly roll them into the program to help out with that as well.
Okay, so that's a dual kind of track that we're doing to start the marketing or seeing what we can do for that funding.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
All right, thank
So,
you.
Mr. Taves, whose responsibility is it to sell the sponsorships?
The
they're-
Regional Mobility Authority retained that, yes, sir, for now. But that's another item where we could shift it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I
Go
just
ahead.
have one more question. Raymond, I know this is going to be successful, but are all our agreements related to this program able to be terminated like in 30 days in the event we don't have the funding or we're not able to do that? We're not locked in for a long period of time.
So the only agreements that are long-term will be the third party, and that will include an escape.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, item B, Mr. Taves?
So item B then deals with a license agreement with the City of El Paso. So as mentioned, actually I don't know if I mentioned this part, 7 of the 8 initial locations that we're looking to place will actually be on either city right-of-way or city property outright, whether it's park space or otherwise. So in order to utilize public space, meaning City of El Paso right-of-way or property, we have to enter into a license agreement with the City of El Paso. So included in your backup as for item 5B is the actual license agreement. It includes the initial 8 stations. It includes all the usual language that you would anticipate, the insurance requirements of the city and the like. This item actually was on yesterday's council agenda for introduction. It comes as an ordinance. So it has 2 readings, and it was introduced yesterday, and it will be back before council for approval next Tuesday. So, of course, I will be there to answer any questions. So the idea here is in order to access the City of El Paso's property and right-of-way, we have to sign this license agreement. So subject to your questions, I'm recommending approval of item 5B.
Members of the board?
Can I just ask a question?
Go right ahead.
Raymond, I think this is a great agreement. This is much better than I've seen the city give licenses. There's no fee. It's great. My only question is on the insurance. Is that something that we can get our third party to provide and not be a cost to the RMA, but rather, I mean, I assume they're providing insurance already, liability insurance under their contract. Is that something that would substitute for the RMA actually having a policy?
They will. So initially, the RMA has secured the insurance requirements to get it through the licensing process. However, the intention is that all of those licensing requirements would then pass to the third party. The issue here was one of timing. We don't have an operator on board, so we couldn't provide their insurance, proof of insurance to the city to process the license. So we had to have this gap insurance.
Okay. So
So,
once they're
yes.
on board, we'll switch over.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And I'll second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Item C, Mr. Tejas.
Okay, item 5C, then I'm moving back to the chair because I think I'm done for a bit. Item 5C then deals with the rates, and included in your backup is a rate schedule. As we discussed, there are different ways to operate this type of a program. What I'm proposing is using an initial period of 30 minutes, and that's, as I mentioned, the 30 minutes is the period within which that's covered by your daily pass, your monthly pass, your semester pass, or your annual pass. From there, then you would have, so what we're looking at is 30 minutes. The 24-hour pass I'm proposing at $6, 30-day pass at $30, semester pass is $50. The annual membership then would be $75 with additional 30 minutes. So this is when you run over that initial period. it would be $2 for every 30 minutes with a max charge per day of $65. And then the last grouping of expenses include a card replacement for $5, key replacement for $10, and a bike replacement for $1,350. The majority of these, and I provided to the board members last week or perhaps over the weekend, I'm not exactly sure when it went out, I provided a spreadsheet identifying similar programs in Texas and elsewhere, roughly the same size as ours, and you'll see that these prices are roughly in line with those. One note I will mention is that, of course, every program is different in that they're seeking to target a different market. The market we're after really includes students, whether it's UTEP, community college, or otherwise, and also, and certainly those coming from Mexico to UTEP as well, which includes that downtown transfer center and the UTEP and community college facilities. So it's students and it's also downtown patrons, whether it's Ballpark, Civic Center, or Union Plaza Entertainment District or the like. So because of that, that's why we have the semester pass. That's why we have the pricing where we have it now. It's a lot. I think it's appropriately suited for students in particular. So that's the justification, that's the reasoning for the pricing that you see before you. So subject to your questions, I'd recommend approval on 5C as well.
I have one question, Mr. Tejas. Okay, the 24-hour pass is $6. So you have 30, you can take a bike out for 30 minutes. How many times a day?
As many times as you
Okay.
can during that 24-hour period.
Just want to make sure that was my understanding. I don't
Yes,
like
sir.
to assume.
No, sir, and it actually works. It's pretty seamless. Once you use your credit card to swipe the first time, it starts the clock. And then once you check that bike in after lunch or whatever it is you're doing, when you come back out, you can use your credit card to swipe, and it recognizes you, and you're able to take a bike right away. So it's a pretty seamless activity. There's no additional cards used or anything like that. The only time there will be a fob is actually when you're an annual member. And actually, I believe you receive one for the semester members as well, if I remember correctly. So you'll actually have a plastic card that you can affix to your keychain, and that's where you'll wave it over one of the sensors, and you'll be able to check out your bike that way as an annual member.
Okay.
One question, if you mind.
Go ahead, Ms. Enier.
Will we be getting updates once the program gets going on, kind of the numbers and what we're seeing? And we can certainly look at those fees if we feel there's not participation, and that might be the reason.
Absolutely. So we discussed this a lot with the vendor, the kiosk vendor, B-Cycle. Rates can be changed as often as you'd like. Now, obviously, we wouldn't want to do it too often. But once we're able to watch the system for a while, and we'll be getting a ton of data. The bikes have GPS on them, so we'll know where they're going, where the most common routes are. Again, back to the point, what's working, what isn't. We'll have tons of data. And a lot of this data, actually, we're developing so that we can share with the MPO so that they can see the patterns of bikes and see the number of vehicles that are being removed from the roadway. So there's a lot of coordination with other agencies as well. Anyhow, the point is, through the use of all that data that we're going to be able to pull from the system, we'll be able to adjust the system accordingly, whether it's station placement or rate schedules.
Will there be some mechanism where the users can provide input as to maybe location they prefer or any potential problems? Is it on our website? But I just want to be customer friendly and responsive to their needs. So is there some way they can be communicating with us on that?
Absolutely. And I should have included this in the PowerPoint. There are several points where a customer can contact us. In fact, the first one is on a website. So B-Cycle is kind of the hub, right? Because B-Cycle has the B-Cycle programs throughout the country. I don't think I mentioned this. They operate all of the major bike share programs in Texas, one in San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, and Houston, with McAllen coming online within the month as well. The unique thing about that is once you get an annual membership with us, you'll be able to use that fob in all of the B-Cycle cities, whether it's Texas or throughout the country, including Hawaii and overseas as well. So that's, I think, an interesting component. But back to your question, the way that you access that is through the B-Cycle website. Once you go to B-Cycle, then each of the cities has a web page from there, or you could, and we'll link directly to our web page from our site as well, and we'll have our own standalone El Paso B-Cycle web page that has all of the rate information. It has frequently asked questions. It has that component where you can suggest new locations and that sort of thing. Outside of that, then you also have an app that comes with this program as well. And that app, you can swipe to find out anything. When you swipe for El Paso, you'll actually be able to see the 8 locations, and more importantly, you'll actually be able to see how many bikes are available at each of the locations. So there's a lot of that outreach that I should have included in the PowerPoint, so I'm glad you asked that.
Great, thank you. That's very exciting, and I move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Item 6 is update on the Americas Interchange project and discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 15.3 with Atkins North America Incorporated as it relates to the completion of the remaining design components necessary for completion of the ultimate schematic for the Americas Interchange. No breath between words there.
Okay, so this one I thought might be a good time to bring one of our general engineering consultant team members to speak with you. We brought Mike Rudd, who's part of the GEC team, and he's actually been involved in the design of ever since actually the very beginning of this program. This one is a huge interchange, as you know. It's got 8 direct connectors. We're redesigning the cloverleaf, the frontage roads, and some additional activities in the area, main lanes and braided ramps. Anyhow, so what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Rudd, and I'd like him to explain to you what the interchange looked like first, and then along the way, the different ways that we've cooperatively developed the program with TxDOT. And he's going to talk a little bit about this last work authorization 15.3, which the intention is to complete all of the design work to get to the ultimate schematic. So that's what this 15.3 is about, and we'll talk a little bit more about the work authorization itself at that point. So, Mr. Rudd, if I could ask you to develop to show that one.
You got it right there. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Mike Rudd, the Jacobs Engineering part of your GEC team. As Raymond said, that I'm going to give you an update on the Americas Interchange, kind of where we were when we first started, when the CRRMA first started with the project, and then where we're headed to, and then leading up to the work authorization 15.3. Let's see which one works. Segments completed, segments under construction, and of course, like I said, the ultimate condition for the interchange. In 2005, TxDOT opened the main lanes of Loop 375 around the interchange, and that's kind of where we started. The ultimate configuration was to be an 8-legged interchange, 4-level, connecting all parts of El Paso to this area, allowing west-east connection up into to the north to the base, and then of course down south towards Zaragoza. That was what the ultimate was. And in 2009 is when the RMA got involved, and we first started the design and construction of the interchange. And this started out with a design build initially. It was not a design bid build as a traditional. The thought was that design build would be cheaper and a lot quicker to construct. We started out in May of 2009 releasing an RFQ. Final RFP was November of 2009. The design builder was selected in April of 2010. The total project cost is about $146 million. We started the project on the 31st of August 2010, and the project was completed in January 2013. The project was constructing 3 of the 8 direct connectors, the south to west, the east to north, and then the north to west. Those were the 3 that were constructed. And this is what it looked like after that was complete. This is an aerial of that. Afterwards, we went back to the traditional design bid build concept. We were asked as the GEC to design the westbound to northbound direct connector initially. Immediately behind that, we were asked to design the west to south and the east to south, and all 3 of those direct connectors we ended up putting into one package and letting that in October of 2012. The project was completed here just recently. And this is the three direct connectors that we were asked to design, the west to north, the west to south, and then the east to south. So for a total of direct connectors now would be 6 of this phase. The actual construction estimate that the GEC put together is $43.46 million, and you can see the three bidders that bid on this: Abrams, G4S, and Sunt, of which Abrams obviously got the award. And this is what it looks like as of about 4 months ago. The three were completed. Traffic is open and operating on all 6 of the direct connectors. In May of 2013, we were asked to continue with the design and finish up the direct connectors. That would be the 2 remaining direct connectors that were left. In addition to that, we were asked to construct or design for construction the westbound and eastbound frontage roads that are west of the Loop 375. And we did that. We submitted the westbound and eastbound frontage roads first. They had higher importance because there was another contract that was going to be let earlier. So we completed that, and those were let in July of 13. We completed our design on the south and south to east and north to east direct connectors, and those were let in July of 2014. Now, the westbound and eastbound frontage roads are complete. They were completed just a couple of months ago. And the southbound to eastbound and northbound to eastbound DCs are currently under construction. We're estimating those to be complete in December of 2016. And these are the 2 direct connectors that will finish out the 8 legs of the interchange. The breakout here of what our estimate was for the eastbound to westbound frontage roads, we estimated 5.5. Because they were part of another project, we slid our plans into another let project. We really don't know what the actual construction bid was, but based on what we could tell from extrapolating from the bids, it looked like we were pretty close to that, about 5.5, 5.6 million. The southbound, south and east, the direct connectors, those came in at 31 million. Hayden Building Corp won that, and those, like I said, they just started. The notice to proceed for those 2 direct connectors were in April 15th, and so they're underway, and they're actually moving along rather quickly. In January of this year, we started continuing with the completion of the remainder of the work on I-10, and that basically involves widening to the inside. I know you've all been through the construction on the west side of Loop 375, where they were doing widening to the inside and adding additional or replacing the truss overhead sign bridges with tubular, adding some aesthetics. Where we're now going to be doing that on the east side of Loop 375 from up to East Lake. In addition to that, we're going to be widening to the outside in some cases to allow for a 4-lane main lane in each direction from East Lake out to Zaragoza. And Zaragoza, ultimately, there will be a 4-lane from just west of the entrance ramp. In addition to that, what we're also looking at is adding some aesthetics to the cloverleaf inside the interchange. Here's just kind of a depiction of what we're going to be doing. The bottom slide, this bottom portion of the slide shows what we will be doing to the east of Loop 375, widening to the inside and to the outside. And the top part of the slide shows what we will be doing to the west side of I-10, west of Loop 375, is predominantly just looking at widening to the outside. Now, I've got a little visualization for you to show what the interchange should look like when we're complete. And this will all obviously lead into the other proposal of what we'd like to do with the interchange cloverleaf areas. Like I said, most of this work is already complete. The last 2 direct connectors are under construction, and we're designing the widening to the inside. And then the last part of what's included in 15.3 will be the aesthetics and the interchange. Now, we started looking at that a couple of years ago, and we've had several ideas that we thought we'd pass through, and we put this in a visualization just to let the board see what we're thinking of. We'll be retooling some of these, tossing some out, putting some in, but I picked out a couple of them that we want to show here, just to give you an idea of what we're thinking of. Now, these are gabions that are in the center that will be lighted up at night. We've got some other ideas to maybe put some additional stone and boulders in the center. And these are some steel structures that will be lighted up at night, provide a unique look to the interchange. Questions?
Sorry, I have a question.
No, don't apologize.
Thanks for the presentation, and that looks great. I do have a question. In reading the amendment, the work authorization, it talks a little bit about that there was some, let me see, conflict or some unforeseen circumstance that is included. So this is not just for aesthetics, it's for some change in circumstance, or can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, it's part of the widening. When we widen to the outside, there's some features that are in our way, and we'll have to relocate those. And so that's what the amendment includes, is relocating those features.
How much of this contract is for that versus the aesthetics? Is most of it going through to the aesthetics?
Most of it is going to the aesthetics, yes, ma'am. I would say probably 2/3 of the cost is probably to aesthetics, and the rest is to the relocation.
Were the aesthetics always a part of this project? Or is it-
They were not. I think they were something that we had talked about as a separate project outside of what the ultimate schematic showed. But we had been talking about the aesthetics for this project for years.
Yeah, if I could touch on that. So the original, when you talk about the project was originally just 3 direct connectors. So the aesthetic really wasn't part of that discussion. But as you notice, and I think Mr. Rudd touched on it, there were all sorts of different funding sources that came in along the way that kept adding construction pieces. And so I think as they kept coming, we realized we do have the funds available to complete the entire interchange, which is not only the infrastructure pieces that Mr. Rudd's talking about, but also the aesthetic component, which is the last piece. And the construction funding is available for the aesthetics as well, which is the remainder of the State Infrastructure Bank loan, which is repaid by the City of El Paso's Transportation Reinvestment Zone proceeds. So not only do we have the funds left over from the project development agreements between the RMA and TxDOT that provides us the funding for the design for all of these things and the aesthetic, but we also have the construction funds at the back end through the SIB loan proceeds to actually pay for the aesthetic. So when we walk away from this thing, the entire interchange will be 100% complete through the schematic and the aesthetic. So it has worked out over the years really quite well.
Great, that's wonderful, and I'd love to see aesthetics as part of a project like this in transportation. So thank you for answering the questions.
And I would
Appreciate
just add to that, I know in other conversations, other projects, I think we always want to include an element of aesthetics from now
Absolutely.
on in any of our projects.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need a board resolution, Mr. Tejas?
Yes, sir.
We need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Item 7 is discussion and action on a board resolution to authorize executive director to execute change order number 5 as it relates to an agreement for toll system integration and maintenance with Snyder Electric Mobility NA Incorporated for the design, installation, and maintenance of a toll collection system on the Border West Expressway project.
So this item, as read into the record, deals with the Border West Expressway. As you know, we are in a partnership with the Texas Department of Transportation for the cooperative development of that project. TxDOT has hired the developer to design the entire roadway. However, the RMA has held back the planning, design, install, and operation of the tolling components of the Border West Expressway. So what you see before you today under item 7 is a change order to our integrator, which is Schneider, to authorize us to begin that planning, design, installation, and it includes maintenance, a maintenance component. So that's what this change order is for. I would mention, too, the original backup that I posted online, I believe late last week, had a typo in it on page 1 under part 2 of the actual change order itself. We had the incorrect maximum amount payable. So that was corrected, I believe, yesterday. The correct actual amount is $5,561,071.66. If you went through the backup, you would get the correct number, but for some reason I missed this under part 2, so I apologize for that. That correct number is as I read into the record. So subject to, actually, I'd mentioned too, we also have an individual from Schneider, if you're interested in hearing any of the technical details of what is included in this proposal. We also have our general engineering consultant who will be doing the oversight for the planning, designing, and installation of this system. I'd mentioned this system included, if you noticed in the scope of work, it will interface with Cesar Chavez and also with the Tornillo Port of Entry, because our integrator is doing all 3 of those facilities. So I think that's an exciting component of this, because it really begins to show you the system that we're developing. This is that next step for that system. So subject to your questions for me, Schneider, or our general engineering consultant, I would recommend approval for this item.
Members of the board, do you want to see the presentation?
I don't, but I do have some questions, just
Sure.
just
Go ahead.
historical. Raymond, how was Schneider originally, was this a bid? I mean, that's a pretty big change order, so I'm trying to get to, was it an actual bid? Was it a?
So this was if I remember correctly, it was an RFP. It was a request for proposals, and this was several years back, with a term. And the way that integrator agreements are structured, or at least this one in particular, and I believe actually the rest of them are with the RMAs. RMAs in particular, we know about the projects we want to do. We just don't have all the funding available today. So what we do is we bring on an integrator saying, this is the project we want you for. However, these are the proposed projects that we're going to go after in the future. So the proposers that bid on it, and we had a healthy group bidding on this one. I believe at least 3 or 4 different integrators were bidding on this one. It was a very detailed procurement. In fact, actually, I think we still have the procurement on our website under the procurements page under the past procurements, and you can see all of the activity. It was a pretty lengthy process, very similar to our GEC selection process. And in fact, actually, it's really analogous to that, because you have with the GEC, you have a master agreement, and then you have the work authorizations. This change order perhaps could be worded better if it were a work authorization as opposed to a change order, but in essence, it serves the same function.
The original bid anticipated this would also be included, so everybody who bid originally would have known this, and this is just...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not only this one, but we had included everything in the 2008 Comprehensive Mobility Plan, which included not only Border West Express, the I-10 managed lanes, which hasn't gone very far, the Northeast Parkway toll lanes, the Americas managed lanes, Cesar Chavez, and this one as well. So, yes, absolutely, it was part of that.
Do at any point, since these are so long and they go on for so many years, is there any benefit to rebidding these at some point, just so that we maybe get a better rate?
Yes.
Do we have a check and balance that that we really do have the best value and the best?
We absolutely do. In fact, if you notice, the maintenance term here is shorter than you would normally see, because it's intended to dovetail with Cesar Chavez. So when we put this back out on the street, the integrator that we select at that point will take over the entire system, not just Chavez or not just Border West. So all of that is intended to
So we'll be
dovetail.
opening it up to other people at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions of the board? Is this going to be a similar layout, Mr. Tejas, to Cesar Chavez?
Actually, it won't. So this will not be a managed lanes scenario like we have on Cesar Chavez, where you've got general purpose lanes outside of the express toll lanes.
No, I meant, but the tolling mechanisms.
Absolutely, yes. So
Okay.
there will be gantries, and the unique part that I was getting to with this one is that either you're on a toll lane or you're not, right? So, but once you're on there will be overhead gantries, and you'll still have the same 2 options for this. You'll have the AVI transponder process and the pay-by-mail process as well.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board, do you want to see the presentation, or are you ready to vote on this?
I do vote.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8 is discussion and action on a board resolution to authorize the vice chair to execute an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso for the Greg Edgemere Road Improvement Project as a 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan project to be funded with the county vehicle registration fee. Mr. Tejas.
So this one, I apologize, I'm going to have to ask the board to delete this one. We've been working with the county on this one. This one is a unique one in that we will be simply providing the vehicle registration fee funds, the proceeds, back to the county so that the county can enter into a developer participation agreement on this particular item. However, I just wasn't able to get the agreement ready in time to have you review it with enough time. So I'd ask that this item be deleted. I hope to bring it back on the August 26th agenda, but I won't post it unless it's actually ready, in which case we can push it to September. It works with the schedule for letting this project, so there's no impact to this delay.
Okay.
Move to delete.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 8 is deleted. Item 9 is update, discussion, and action on the following toll-related items. A is an annual base toll rate increase for the Cesar Chavez Express toll lanes as required by the CRRMA's toll policy. And item B, implementation of the Veteran Toll Waiver Program. Mr. Tejas?
Okay, under item 9A, there's actually no action required. This is more informational than anything. So as noted in the backup provided and in the toll policies adopted by the Regional Mobility Authority, there is an annual escalation clause within our toll policies. And in fact, it actually goes back to the market valuation agreement between TxDOT and the Regional Mobility Authority that was eventually blessed and approved by the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So that escalation method and the escalation rate has already been approved by TxDOT, the MPO, and the Regional Mobility Authority. So what you see before you under the memo is basically an explanation of why this comes into play, but also how much. And that's identified in the table that's included there for you. So right now we use a base toll rate of 10 cents per mile, which basically equates to 40, well, a total, if you were to run the entire length of the 9 miles, you would run 90 cents for Cesar Chavez. With this increase, then it would run an additional 1 cent per segment. So instead of the 90 cents, now you're going up to the 92 cents, I believe, if I've got that right. So each segment, and actually the way that we break them out is by segment. So I should do it that way. There are, as you know, there's 2 gantries on Cesar Chavez. One gantry, the stretch is you're charged 40 cents currently, and the second segment you're charged 50 cents. So going forward, you will actually be charged 80 cents for that segment. Have I confused that enough for you? I apologize. And included in here is actually the pay-by-mail rate as well. And that's what you're seeing here as the second column, the increase of the 2 cents there. So I hope that makes sense. I can try that again if you'd like.
It's easier if we look at it on
Yeah,
paper.
I should have stopped a long time ago. I apologize for confusing you.
No, that's all right.
Anyhow, the point is that there is an annual escalation method and rate within our toll policies, and this is more than anything a notification to the board and also to the public that we are increasing the toll rates per policy. So there's no action required on that item. Item 9B then, we've brought Ron Fagan, who's part of our general engineering consultant team, back. As several of you will recall, we've been looking at a veteran toll waiver program for Cesar Chavez and eventually Border West Express and any other toll facilities that we bring online. The last visit from Mr. Fagan was a breakdown of the different alternatives that we had available to us that we were looking at in terms of how to implement this type of a program with the least financial impact to the RMA, financial and operational impact. Obviously, we're a small agency, so we had to make sure that any proposed solution was efficient. So I'll ask Mr. Fagan to walk you through the proposed solution, and at the end I'm going to ask for board direction to direct staff to implement the program. So, Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Tejas. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. Ron Fagan of Fagan Consulting. Our firm is a part of your GEC team. We have been for several years. This presentation is a follow-on to the one we did several months ago, where we looked at the possibility of implementing a discount or an exempt toll program for qualifying veterans. We offered several options, and we had a recommendation. So this is a follow-on to that recommendation and potentially implementing that program. What we'll look at very quickly is the legislation that authorizes this, what other agencies are doing in the state currently toward the veteran discount program or veteran exemption program, the potential financial impact to the authority, and finally the actual process by which this would work and the timeline that it would be implemented. How do I get the up? Okay. All right, so good. The summary itself, in the 81st legislative session, it was passed House Bill 3139 that gave tolling entities the authority to either discount or totally exempt the toll for vehicles that had qualifying license plates in these various categories of veterans. So often referred to as disabled veteran program, but you can see it is not just that. So disabled veterans, Purple Heart recipients, Medal of Honor recipients, and Legion of Valor recipients. So clarification on a couple of those. To qualify as a disabled veteran, you have to have at least 40% disability, or I'm sorry, 50% disability, or you have to have 40% disability with the amputation of a lower extremity. So someone who has 20% disability would not qualify for this particular program. Purple Heart recipients, again, Medal of Honor, and Legion of Valor recipients. The Legion of Valor is actually made up of Medal of Honor recipients, Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, and Air Force Cross recipients. And so those are the various groups. Through a license plate survey done last year, this represents, of all the vehicles registered in the El Paso region or El Paso County, about 1.8% of all vehicles registered here. It does not include Fort Bliss because those folks don't have to register a vehicle when they come here. They keep whatever they have. So there may, in fact, be Purple Heart recipients still on active duty that those license plates are there. Okay? So what is going on currently in the state? When this was passed, several people took action right away. Some we will see have not. Currently, TxDOT, Harris County Toll Road Authority in Houston, Cameron County Regional Mobility Authority in Brownsville, and CRRMA in Tyler all have some form of discount program for veterans. In fact, all of them, they're absolutely free. There's no one offers a discount. It's actually exempt 100%. You do not have to pay the toll. NTTA and CRRMA do not have a program at this point. NTTA is a little unique. They have a car dealership that sponsors Legion of Valor personnel. So they will pay those. That is not a great number of folks, as you might imagine, but at least it is there. NTTA and CRRMA have taken the stance, essentially, that they fully support the program. They appreciate the service of the veterans, but until there is funding also provided by the legislation, they are not going forward with implementing the program at this time. So that is where we stand across the state. What is potentially the financial impact to this agency for implementing a program that would allow all of these categories to not have to pay the toll? So what we looked at was 3 years, 2015 through 2017. It looked at the average AVI rate, AVI being transactions that are paid with a transponder in the windshield. Pay by mail are those where you take a picture of the license plate and process that and send a bill. Total transactions for those years, and then considering the 1.8% population of the disabled veteran transactions that might be there, this is a potential financial impact to the agency over the course of these 3 years. It only contemplates Cesar Chavez. This does not try to include anything to do with Border Highway West. So you can see that not quite 5,000, just over 6,000 in 2016, and in 2017, nearly $7,000, assuming every single vehicle that is eligible would use the facility, and that's probably not likely going to be the case. Additional costs are incurred in this program. CRRMA will actually purchase the transponders for the veterans, and they cost $8.77 currently. So they would purchase 150 of those in the initial year to start this off, and you can see what that cost is. Going forward, again, we don't anticipate a great number of people, additional people to sign up per year. So as you look at 2016 and 2017, it only adds an additional 25 vehicles per year to the process. There is an additional cost, operating cost annually maybe of about $10,000 for the GEC to help the authority oversee this process. So how would this work and when might it be implemented? I'll try not to overdo you with the details, but it's sort of important to understand how this might work. So CRRMA would actually purchase the tags, as we said. They would have them here locally and eligible for the veterans to use. The veteran then has to either download a form from the website or pick up a form from CRRMA offices, complete the form saying I, for all these reasons, qualify and I have the license plate that fits one of these. CRRMA then has to query the DMV to confirm that this person actually has this vehicle registered in their name and it has one of the qualifying plates. That's not an instantaneous thing, that's probably a few days. Once it comes back that it is confirmed this veteran's vehicle does match, veteran is notified. They can either have the transponder mailed to them or they can come to the CRRMA office, I believe, and pick that up. The veteran at that point, if they don't want to do anything else with the tag, that's the end of the process. Put it in your vehicle. The Snyder will develop a system for your local server that says we recognize every single one of these tags. If it comes through a CRRMA lane, don't do anything else with it. Don't send it off to the interoperable hub. It is stopped here as a zero toll transaction, nothing the veteran needs to do. However, if the veteran wants to use that vehicle and that tag to pay for tolls someplace else, they need to register the tag with NTTA, who is your toll tag provider, and put some funds in the account. In that case, then, the vehicle's transponder and the license plates are matched together and there are funds. Still no charge for using any facility in El Paso, but if they choose to drive to Houston and use a toll facility, they have funds to pay for those transactions as opposed to pay by mail or being a violation. Being able to do this eliminates sending those transactions out and incurring 6 to 8% of the toll rate per transaction, which is currently the rule under Texas interoperability. You are taking care of everything in-house and not sending anything anywhere else and not incurring those costs per transaction. The integrator, as we said, if the veteran wants to go someplace else, they are responsible for putting funds in the account to pay the toll outside of El Paso. The system modifications that Snyder is going to implement, we anticipate being done by the end of October. The good news is, originally that was going to cost the authority about $20,000 for software development. Because of some work they did for CTRMA on a ride-sharing program, that development has already taken place, and they are providing that to this agency at no additional cost. So that piece goes away. Finally, it is getting the word out to the veterans and the media that the program is coming, and here's what it is all about with detail as we've outlaid here. That should start around October 1st to let folks know that the program is coming. Here's how it works. Here's how you pick up your tag. Here are the steps that you need to take. Essentially, that is the Veterans Program. Yeah, I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have.
Implement this program is essentially about $18,000 in terms of the GEC cost, and then the cost that you show on your tag. So that's basically the cost to the loss, if you will. Either we pay it out or we're not getting the revenue. Is that? You mentioned, I mean, these numbers look fine to me, but then you mentioned a $10,000 cost.
There's a separate annual oversight for the GEC. There will be some administrative back and forth, the querying of the DMV, working
just to
with the
administer
veterans.
this program.
Yes, on an annual basis.
Brandon, have we been receiving requests from veterans for this type of waiver, or where is this coming from?
Actually, the initial request came from State Representative Pickett.
Okay.
So that's where this conversation started for us to try to figure out how to implement it. And we were really, at the outset, we were hamstrung because North Texas Tollway Authority, as the main provider, and you know, we promote the NTTA toll tag. They don't have their own program. So we had to scramble to figure out another alternative. But since Representative Pickett began the discussion, we do actually receive veteran calls from veterans. Not particularly often, but every now and then Representative Pickett will go to a Veterans Affairs group, and sure enough, I'll know when he goes because we get calls shortly thereafter. So there is joking aside, there is an interest in the program.
I mean, obviously, this is a great program. I'm just concerned about can we absorb it fiscally? And I know this is a new, and the tools aren't being used maybe to the level that we anticipated. And really, if we do it with what we have today, we're going to see this increasing with Border Highway West. It's going to be, what is the impact when we get that online? I want to see this done. I don't know if we can go out to businesses and get them to try to sponsor this, but do you have a recommendation based on whether you think we can absorb this and we're not going to?
Yes, I think we can. So the administrative costs we can clearly absorb into the operating budget that we establish for the general engineering consultant each year to administer the Chavez program. These additional costs, I believe we can absorb them as well through the operational funds that we've set aside from the TechStop program as well. So yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
So if you all are supportive of the program, I would ask for a motion to direct staff to implement the program as outlined today.
I'll move.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think this is a great program. Take the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. What will be the implementation? What time frame, Mr. Tiz?
So we are looking at notices to media and veteran groups by October 1 of this
Okay.
year.
Just to reiterate, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Members of the board, item 10 is an item that we need to retire to executive session for, but I would like to take, with your permission, item 11, which is update, discussion, action on the executive director's report prior to that. I don't believe that requires a vote, Mr. Tejas?
No, sir.
Okay, so A, Mission Ridge Boulevard Arterial 1 letting process. Item B, El Paso Streetcar Project procurements, vehicle infrastructure. And item C, Tornillo Guadalupe Port of Entry procurements for security and janitorial services. Mr. Tejas?
These will be very brief updates, but I did want to provide you an update on each of these. So Mission Ridge Boulevard, which is also known as Arterial 1, as you'll recall from last board meeting, there was an item on the agenda that I asked for authority to begin advertising the construction for that particular project. The hope was that we would be able to gather the design services, the design documents from the county's engineering firm, and also an additional, if you recall, there was an additional package that we were going to roll into the program for the design work from the water utility. And that's important because there's a large water main that will be running in the middle of this roadway. So obviously we can't go forward with the project without having the PSB component included in here. Otherwise we would have to stop the project and wait for the water utility to complete their work and then come in after them. So that didn't make a lot of sense. So we had been working with the water utility to get their plans and potentially advertise between the last board meeting and today. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that quite yet. In fact, we're getting the water utility plans today, I believe. So what this is really just an update letting you know that we did not advertise, but that we hope to advertise in early September. And actually, I think it works out a little bit better this way. That way we'll actually advertise for 3 weeks. We may have a question process for the contractors that are interested, and it gives us a little bit more time so that we'll actually let in late September. So I'll bring updates to you on this one as they occur. So that's just an informational item there. B is similar, informational only. As you'll recall, we've been discussing a second August board meeting, August 26th at 9 a.m. Here in council chambers, and hopefully that's on your calendars. The main thrust of that meeting will be the streetcar procurements, and we have received bids on the vehicle RFP as well as the infrastructure RFP. We are evaluating those. As you know, they're both best value, so we're evaluating those as we speak, and we hope to have proposed winners for you with a presentation at the August 26th board meeting. Beyond that, we'll be adopting the budget and doing some other things, but this is obviously a very important project for us, so that's going to be a very important part of that agenda. And lastly, Tornillo Guadalupe Port of Entry procurements for security and janitorial services. As you will recall, we have put out RFPs for both. We have received bids on the security services item. We are evaluating those, and I hope to bring those to you at the end of this month as well, if not into September. Janitorial, actually, we did not receive any bidders on that one. And we called, I want to say 20 janitorial services companies to let them know about the procurement. We actually had a walkthrough. And in the end, I believe most of the responses were that it was either too far or there were some requirements that were imposed on them that were in excess of the value of the contract. I believe is the way they were stated. So what we've done is we're looking at either retooling that procurement, and we have a couple other alternatives. So I hope to bring back to you either at the next board meeting or in September a different approach to secure janitorial services. Now I'll mention these procurements are still in line with the overall timeline in terms of opening the facility, so there's no impact by either of these to that ultimate opening schedule. So we're okay time-wise. Again, these items were just brief updates and no action is required.
Thank you, Mr. Tejas. I'm going to read item 10, and then we'll retire to executive session. Item 10 is discussion and action on board resolutions to approve the executive director's annual performance evaluation, authorizing the CRRMA vice chair to communicate the results of the evaluation to the city of El Paso and to take other actions as necessary, and B, to request the city of El Paso to amend and extend the employment agreement between the city of El Paso and the executive director. This is a personnel matter, and I would like for us, Mr. Gordon, to retire to executive session. Is that proper here, or?
Yeah, yes, sir. I just think you need to recite that it's being done, or the record needs to show that it's being done pursuant to Government Code Section 551-071, which is consultation with attorney, and 551.074, personnel matters, as potentially indicated on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for that amendment. Motion on board, I'll entertain a motion to retire to executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are retired to executive session at 10:25 a.m. Members of the board, I need a motion to resume the meeting,
So moved.
reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is reconvened at 10:42 a.m. Mr. Gordon?
A resolution for your consideration concerning agenda item number 10. And I'll read it into the record, and it's certainly printed. Whereas the City of El Paso and the CRRMA Board executed a management agreement dated August 8, 2008, wherein the City of El Paso provides management services in part through the Executive Director who is employed by contract with the City of El Paso. And whereas pursuant to the management agreement, the city has employed the executive director for the CRRMA, whose performance evaluation is conducted by the CRRMA. And whereas the performance evaluation of the executive director for the period ending August 31, 2015 exceeds expectations. And whereas the board desires that the evaluation be communicated to the City of El Paso in order that the executive director's salary and benefits may be adjusted in accordance with the executive director's contract with the City of El Paso. Now therefore be it resolved by the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority that the chairman is authorized to communicate to the City of El Paso the results of the executive director's performance evaluation and recommend to the City of El Paso that the executive director's salary and benefits be increased in accordance with the terms of the employment agreement. And that the executive director's salary and benefits should be increased in accordance with the provisions of Exhibit A to his employment agreement effective September 1, 2015. There's one modification in that we should probably say vice chair instead of chairman. I will write that in this version of the resolution. And it is submitted for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Members of the board?
I move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Tejas, for your service.
Thank you
We
very much.
appreciate the work, the fine work that you do for the CRRMA.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. With that, I entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The time?
Time?
The time?
Joe, the time.
10:45 a.m.
Thank you.